Well, we were together, my father was 58, my mother, she was 43, my brother, who was 22, I was 21, my sister was 19, my brother was 16, the other brother was 14, sister was 8, and the little brother was 5. We're trying to keep together and go along on the road, what had been told by this brave SS.
The trial of Adolf Eichmann began in the spring of 1961. During the Holocaust, Eichmann had been an SS lieutenant colonel. He was directly responsible for the deportation of most of the Jews of Western, Central and Southern Europe to their deaths in camps located in Eastern Europe. The trial was the focus of worldwide attention. It was a dramatic story, an SS officer accused of the murder of Jews defending his life in a courtroom in the capital of the Jewish state.
When I stand before you, judges of Israel, in this court, to accuse Adolf Eichmann, I do not stand alone. Here with me at this moment stand 6 million prosecutors, but alas, they cannot rise to level the finger of accusation in the direction of the glass dock and cry out, "J'accuse," against the man who sits there, because their ashes have been piled up in the mounds of Auschwitz and the fields of Treblinka, or spilled into the rivers of Poland, and their graves are scattered throughout the length and breadth of Europe. Their blood cries to heaven, but their voice cannot be heard. Thus it falls to me to be their mouthpiece and to deliver the heinous accusation in their name.
And we knew something awful would happen. At that moment, a number of Germans entered our house. One of them stood at the entrance, blocked the entrance. The others scattered in the rooms and began searching and began driving out people who were not yet in hiding. Whoever would pass through the entrance would absorb a blow from a rubber baton on his head, and he would fall down right there. When I saw that, I wanted to avoid being beaten this way. I ducked, and I jumped out, and I managed not to receive this blow.
And
I mixed with that multitude. I tried to stop along the way to see whether I could find out what would happen to my family, whether they had been found out or not. I thought if I was on the edge, perhaps I could see them coming and I could join them. Unfortunately, however, I saw my mother, my small brother and uncle and other Jews included in the group of those people who were found out, and my little brother then told me later that they were beaten severely. And then we marched together in that direction where we were driven.
On the way, other Jews joined you?
Other Jews joined us. They would just be driven out of the homes along the way.
How many were you finally?
So
you walked 1,000 men, 1,000 people.
Yes, I was near my mother. We worked with these children.
mother in the center and you and your brothers on her sides.
That's how it was. I was on her right, my little brother on her left. That's how we proceeded.
What did mother say?
She said, say Shema Israel, recite the prayer of Shema Israel, we shall die as Jews. We were brought to the marketplace in the middle of the town. We were told to kneel, heads down. We were not permitted to lift our heads. Whoever did so would either be shot right through the head or would be beaten. Of course, we saw from the corner of our eyes that people who tried to run away were shot right there. When we got there, approximately 100 yards from the cemetery, we were told to get off the road. Again, we had to kneel, heads down. We were not permitted to raise our heads or look aside. We only heard shots from the sides. And I was small then. I was shorter than the others. I could raise my head without being discovered. And I saw in front of me a long trench, about 25 yards long, maybe 30. They began leading us row after row, group after group. We were led to that trench. People were undressed. Then they would have to go on that little hill which was near the trench. Machine gun bursts were heard and they would fall into the trench.
So that people were given one kind of certificate so that they could register the wife and 2 children.
How did a man receive such a certificate?
Not every Jew could get a certificate of this kind, a certificate of survival. He had to have another certificate proving that he was an expert. But shoemakers, farriers who could work for the war effort. There was also a number of physicians to treat the sick in the ghetto. But intellectuals, rabbis, shoheds, judges, writers, newspapermen, they were superfluous. They were regarded as people unfit for work, and they were not entitled to the certificate of survival.
And a man would come home and say, Mother.
The man would come back home and he would say, look here, Mother, I have got a certificate, but I can either put on the certificate yourself or my wife. One of you would have to hide somewhere in a bunker. Perhaps you will be lucky to survive, or perhaps not. And if I have 3 children, I can only put the name of the 2 of them on the certificate, and the 3rd has got either to be hidden or will have to be captured by the Germans. I remember one man who came to his mother and said, Mother dear, advise me what to do. You know the situation. Now I can take either you or my wife. And the mother said, it is written in our Holy Bible,
a man shall leave his father and mother and stick to his wife. Your wife was born for you and meant for you from heaven. I shall give my life for your wife. Give that valid certificate to your wife.
She gave the last blessing to the son, to the wife, and to the children.
This was you, Dr. Dvorzetsky.
Yes.
On the night of the 15th of July, Gens, the commander of the municipal police, sent his representative and wanted us to come urgently for consultation. He called Itzik Wittenberg to come there urgently. He called Abrasha Chwoinik, a woman named Chwaina Borowska, and myself. We were summoned. We were told that the meeting must be at a certain hour, but then it was postponed until 10 o'clock that night. We got to the office of the police commander. First he spoke about transfers, but we felt something in the air. And out of this feeling, an internal feeling which we had posted guards near all main buildings earlier. And now, after a few minutes of conversation, which was rather meaningless, a side door opened in that office, of Genz's office, and there appeared SS men with loaded submachine guns.
Now,
we were ordered to get up, and they asked, "Who is Wittenberg?" No one answered. So Genz pointed to Wittenberg and said, "This is Wittenberg." He was bound and was taken out. We were dazed. We told Genz, "You are a base traitor. We shall see you." And he said, "I am not to blame. One of your men was captured by the Gestapo. He gave Wittenberg's name, and I must turn him over. Otherwise, others would pay with their lives." This is what he said. We left the office, and he was led away by the Gestapo to the gate of the ghetto. It was not very far. The distance was a few hundred meters or less. Our sentries, our scouts saw what had happened. They immediately alerted other fighters. They stormed and charged the Gestapo men. There was an exchange of fire, and they escaped. We had Wittenberg with us. It was difficult to release him from the fetters, but something happened which no one could have imagined. The Germans did not enter the ghetto, but they told Genz that unless by 3 o'clock that night Wittenberg is not brought and turned over to them, they are going to raise the ghetto. Genz immediately called all the ghetto together. He alerted the policemen, the brigadiers. He had this mass meeting out there. He explained to the Jews that because of this one man, Wittenberg, the entire ghetto may be destroyed and annihilated. There was excitement. At first people wouldn't believe it. The hour of 3 o'clock passed. It was extended. When we saw what was happening, we printed a leaflet, a proclamation to all the Jews. I myself composed it, and I know it was not the truth which I said then. I knew we had no indication that there was an action about to take place. It was a static situation. I wrote that there was a decision to exterminate the ghetto, and that this was merely a pretext. We shall fight, we shall protect, defend ourselves, I said. And I took that leaflet to Wittenberg. He ordered us to mobilize the organization. We did so. And then the Jews went out into the streets. There were no Germans in the ghetto. Genz mobilized everyone he could, intelligentsia, plain people, policemen at the head, who obtained arms against us. Delegations, deputations came to us. They pleaded for mercy. They said, "You cannot endanger the entire ghetto for one man." And negotiations began. First of all, we postponed this. We rejected it. And then there was this furious attack by people. They attacked us, those people who were about to be the victims. They charged us, the defenders, with axes, stones, sticks, even with arms. Arms which they obtained from the Germans. We faced our own brethren. We explained it to them. We gave orders to our fighters not to use arms, not even knives. Our people tore out their own hair. They were bleeding in the streets when they tried to tear apart this illusion that it was not because of one man. It became clear later that Kozlovsky indeed had informed and had betrayed the name. But this did not matter to us then. We could not give up our commander and turn him over, and then the negotiations began. Well, we hid Wittenberg. We said he was no longer in the ghetto. He had escaped. And there's another young woman who is in the courtroom now. She took him dressed in the guise of a woman. He was dressed as a woman from street to street. We ourselves, his friends in the headquarters, did not wish to know where he was in order not to be placed in temptation. But then we were faced with a choice. To open fire for the first time against the future victims, our brethren, all that we had built up for years is about to collapse. Because this happened, because we could be reduced to such terrible insanity, the victims could be reduced to that insanity because of begging for 1 hour of life. One perhaps cannot understand this. Now, towards morning, we reached Wittenberg's hideout, we, the members of the headquarters, his colleagues. We were dumb. We were dumbfounded. We were confused. Another attempt was made a moment before that by someone. Someone told Gens that another person will turn himself over. There was a volunteer for that, to take Wittenberg's place. He rejected that. When they besieged us, the entire ghetto besieged us around our headquarters, and it was all we could do to get to Wittenberg, to this attic where he was. The revolver was there on the table. He wanted to commit suicide. No, he did not do that. And then he asked us, "Do you wish me to turn myself over?" We did not reply. And I told him, "Look, there are Jews in the streets. We shall have to fight them in order to get at the enemy. Perhaps the others will stand there and laugh derisively. That is the situation. Give an order and we shall fight. Are you prepared to give that order?" No. He was not prepared to give that order. He was a great man. He gave me the revolver. He appointed me as commander. He went out into the street. We all stood there. The masses surrounding us, and they told us in the street, here he went to the ghetto gate to turn himself over to the Gestapo. Yes, he was tortured and he died.
In what way the deportations were organized? Deportation to the east. How was it established? How did you know about it? How were people mobilized? How would a man know that he was to be taken
Witness
and deported?
Melkman, the commander, would inform the Jewish administration in Westerbork that on the next day, it was always the Tuesday of the week, that a certain number of people would have to be deported, and the Jewish administration had to submit a list of people, a list of names who would be deported. A little over the quota, because naturally there was the possibility that there would be people who would die en route, and Auschwitz always had to receive the full complement So if the quota was 1,000, they would send 1,020. In the night between Monday and Tuesday, they would seal off the barracks where we lived. All the barracks were sealed hermetically. And then the barrack elder would call out the name of the doomed people. It was an alphabetical list. Sometime there was another additional alphabetical list, and I must say that of all the horrible things I have witnessed later, horrible tortures and all that, the strongest impression which I have retained, and this is the same with others, was that night between Monday and Tuesday, 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, when there was deadly silence and darkness, and the names would be read out, as though a death sentence would be read out every night to the doomed people. Sometimes you yourself might be included, and if not you yourself, then your relatives, friends, acquaintances. Every week this recurred, a certain number of death sentences in that hour, and that created a devastating impression on all of us. We still retain a sensitivity for Tuesday to this very day. We still remember this as the day of the death sentence to Dutch Jews.
Est-ce que tous ces enfants, Monsieur Veller, connaissaient leur propre nom?
Did they know their family names? All of the children?
Small children of 2, 3, or 4 years of age who did not know their names. Children, when they arrived to our camp from Bois-la-Roland and Petit-de-Bouillet, already spent 2 or 3 weeks being neglected and uncared for. They were in torn clothes and dirty. There were buttons missing. A shoe would be missing, and the child would be wearing only one shoe. Their bodies were covered with wounds. They had diarrhea. Then, from the first day of their arrival to our camp, we organized 4 teams of women. I headed those teams to take care of the children, to clean the children, but they had no soap, no clean underwear, and they would do what they could with their clean pocket handkerchiefs. The women themselves were deportees and were about to be removed from our camp.
What is the reason why you chose the literary pseudonym K. Zetny, Mr. Dinor?
This is actually the history of the Auschwitz planet. The time chronic there is not a concept as it is here in our planet. Every fraction of a second has a different wheels of time. And the inhabitants of that planet had no names. They had no parents, and they had no children. They were not clothed as we are clothed here. They were not born there, and they did not conceive there. They breathed and lived according to different laws of nature. They did not live according to the laws of this world of ours, and they did not die. Their name was a number, Katsetnik number so-and-so. I stayed there, and I was always left behind. I can still see them gazing at me. I saw them in the queue.
Hausner, could I perhaps, Mr. Dinur, put a few questions to you if you will consent? President of Court, Mr. Dinur, please listen to Mr. Hausner and to me.
Check it.
I am holding a series of pictures. They are on page 1118 of this book. Identify yourself in this picture. Could you point to yourself on this photograph?
In the center with a white kerchief on my head.
Would you mark the spot with an X? Can you identify anyone else?
Yes, my sisters.
Your sister was holding up her daughter, who was an infant, and another girl who was 5 years old. Then the SS man approached her and asked your sister.
My mother was near us. He asked if this was mother. She said yes. So he said, "Give the children to your mother." She said, "No, they are mine, I shall not hand them over." There was a discussion. He called the prisoner in prisoner's clothes and ordered him to translate into the Yiddish so that she understands. So he said, "If you wish to live, hand your children over to your mother." She said, "They are mine, I shall not hand them over." The SS man came up. He took the baby from my sister's arms and handed it over to my mother. And then he also took the 5-year-old boy to my mother.
And they are no longer alive?
No.
And neither is your mother?
No. Because they said a transport of men was expected on the same day. In the afternoon, coaches arrived, but there were some 500 or 800 who were human beings once upon a time. We removed them from the wagons, and from head to foot they were covered with open wounds. They were in rags, half naked. The commander of the camp did not let us take into the halls we cleaned. We put them on the floor in the courtyard because they were dying, and he told us that we are not to give any water to those dying men, and all they asked for was water. I found the husband of my friend. He was a young man, but he was dying. He was all one big open wound. He saw me, and he asked for water. I took his water flask and went up to the well, up to the cistern in the courtyard. I was hoping that they would not see me, but the commander saw everything.
They took pregnant women as well. Were there pregnant women among you?
Yes, there were 3 pregnant women in camp. And when the moment for labor came, the commander brought a torchlight, which was on a kind of post.
You mean a floodlight, yes?
a strong light. He would put this flashlight
Where did they put the childbearing mother?
Woman. She was on the floor with the others, and he would stand opposite the woman and said he wants to see how a human being is born into this world. The children which were born did not live more than an hour or 1.5 hours, because it was enough for one lice to bite to bring death.
And what happened to the mothers?
I believe that only one survived.
Wer hat das Fenster aufgemacht? Noch einmal. Und dann, ohne eine Antwort abzuwarten, nimmt er seine Pistole und hat den, der am Fenster saß, der das Fenster aufgemacht hat, dem hat er eine Kugel durch den Kopf geschossen. Und dem daneben saß, der gar nichts damit zu tun hatte, eine Kugel durch den Hals. Es war... Entschuldigen Sie.
Ja.
Ich wollte mich verbessern. Ich saß mit dem Rücken zum SS-Mann, mit dem Gesicht zur Fahrtrichtung. Und die beiden, die erschossen wurden, das heißt, einer war sofort tot und der andere, der hat noch vielleicht, ich weiß nicht, 12 Stunden, 15 Stunden gelebt. Und wir durften ihm keine Hilfe bringen, wir durften gar nichts machen. Der eine, der war tot, nicht, und der hat mit seinen groß erstaunt aufgerissenen leeren Augen saß der da, und wir mussten ihn festbinden, dass er nicht vorne überkippt. Und der andere, der nebendran saß, der noch 15 Stunden, vielleicht 12 Stunden, 15 Stunden bis spät in der Nacht gewimmert hat und hat aus dem Hals geblutet. Es war ein Arzt bei uns im Waggon, aber der SS-Mann hat verboten, dass man ihm Hilfe bringen durfte. Wir durften gar nichts machen, bis er tot war. Und dann haben wir ihn ebenfalls festgebunden, damit er nicht vornüberfällt. Da stand ein SS-Offizier, stand auf einem Tisch, und wir mussten so im Gänsemarsch vorgehen, und er hat jeden einzelnen von uns gefragt. Beruf, Alter. Vor mir war ein Mann, ein guter Bekannter von mir, mit dem ich mich in Theresienstadt schon angefreundet hatte, sagt der Rechtsanwalt, und da hat er gleich nach rechts gezeigt. Und da kam die Reihe an mir, und da sagte er zu mir, Beruf, und da habe ich gesagt, Feinmechaniker. Alter, habe ich gesagt, 38, ich war damals schon 43. Und Gesundheit ausgezeichnet. Und da hat er mich sehr prüfend von oben bis unten angeschaut. Ich war etwas mit Blut verschmiert von meinem Gegenüber, der da angeschossen worden ist im Zug. Und ich sah auch sonst wahrscheinlich nicht sehr vertrauenerweckend aus. Wir haben ja nichts gegessen, nichts getrunken gehabt die ganze Zeit während der ganzen Bahnreise. Und da fragte er, wie lange im Fach? Und da habe ich gesagt, 24 Jahre, so bleibt das gegenwärtig. Und da hat er nach links gezeigt, und so bin ich auch nach links gegangen. Und nachher, wie wir abgezählt worden sind, waren wir, ich glaube, an die 200, 210, 212 darum, von dem Transport von 1200, und der zweite Transport, der ist restlos vergast worden. Also der Transport, der direkt nach uns fortging, der ist ganz vergast worden. Der tschechische Jude wurde aufgehängt, und zwar nicht auf eine Art, wie man sonst aufgehängt wird, dass man auf eine Kiste gestellt wurde und das wird dann weggestoßen, sondern er wurde aufgezogen. Es war ein sehr qualvoller Tod. Und dann kam die Reihe an mich, und wie ich schon einen Strick um den Hals hatte, sagte der Lagerführer oder der Interimslagerführer, sagte, das ist ja der nur die eine Kartoffel hatte. Und da sagte der andere SS-Mann, ja, sagte auch, da hängt den 2 Stunden mit den Händen auf. Ich glaube, in dem Moment wäre es mir sehr viel lieber gewesen, wenn ich richtig aufgehängt worden wäre. Die Hände wurden mir auf dem Rücken zusammengebunden, und ich wurde so aufgezogen. Die Natur, die ist Gott sei Dank sehr viel barmherziger wie die Menschen. Ich habe sofort nach diesem ungeheuren Schmerz sofort die Besinnung verloren Und ich weiß nicht, wie lange es hing. 1 Minute, 2 Minuten, 5 Minuten, 8 Tage, ich habe keine Ahnung. Ich glaube nicht, dass ich sehr lange dort hing. Ich bin wieder wach geworden, wie ich schon auf dem Fußboden in der Maschinenhalle wieder lag. Und ein Arzt, der bei uns im Transport war, der hat versucht mit aller Gewalt meine Arme, die waren ja ausgekugelt, um die wieder einzukugeln. Und ich habe dann die ganze Nacht durch Kompressen bekommen, kalte Kompressen bekommen. Am nächsten Tag musste ich selbstverständlich genauso wie vorher weiterarbeiten. Die SS war abmarschiert. Das wussten wir mit fast allen Häftlingen. Es waren noch ziemlich einige Häftlinge da. Dieser Baracke, in jener Baracke, das habe ich erst später, nachher habe ich das gemerkt. In unserer Baracke waren vielleicht 10, 15 Häftlinge noch, die auch nicht mitmarschiert sind oder die zurückgeblieben sind. Und dann auf einmal, ich kann mir vorstellen, dass es früh am Nachmittag war, wir haben wie Tote geschlafen. Da ist einer von draußen reingestürzt und hat gerufen, rasch, rasch, eilt euch, die SS kommt zurück. Und vor lauter Aufregung, vor lauter Erregung habe ich keine Schmerzen mehr gehabt und ich habe die beiden Freunde, wir sind alle aufgesprungen und ich habe die 2 Freunde, die neben mir waren, die habe ich mit rübergezogen. Gegenüber war die Latrine und wir haben uns dort in der Latrine versteckt. Und wir haben dann durch die Ritzen geschaut, was passiert. Wir waren natürlich in einer ungeheuren Aufregung. Und wir haben da gesehen, dass von oben aus von den Wachtürmen ist runtergeschossen worden. Und die Baracken, wir konnten ja nur einen kleinen Ausschnitt durch diese Ritzen sehen. Aber die 3 Baracken, die gerade uns gegenüber lagen, die sind in Brand gesteckt worden und die SS-Soldaten, die haben sich davor postiert mit Maschinengewehren und alles, was rausgelaufen ist, das ist abgeschossen worden und die nicht rausgelaufen sind, die sind natürlich lebend verbrannt. Wir haben uns, meine Freunde und ich, wir haben Angst gehabt, es kommt doch die SS, steckt auch die Latrine in Brand oder kommt rein. Und die sehen uns und da sind wir, über das Brett sind wir da runtergesprungen. Und ich glaube, das war das Schlimmste von der ganzen KZ-Zeit. Da sinkt man so ganz langsam ab und man weiß nicht, wie tief geht es, wo bleibt man stehen. Und wie dann ungefähr so tief in dem Kot stand, habe ich festen Boden unter den Füßen gespürt. Und der Geruch von der verbrannten Wolle, von dem Knistern vom Holz, von den angeschossenen und nicht Toten, die aus den Baracken gelaufen sind. Ich glaube, das war das Schlimmste, was ich jemals im KZ erlebt habe.
The most important aspect of the testimonies given was the questions they raised regarding the most basic human traits: love of one's fellow man, compassion, self-sacrifice, the preservation of humanity amid disaster. In their stories, the witnesses posed the challenge of a deep and renewed understanding of the essence of humanity and human dignity.
Ich habe erklärt, ein Offizier hat einen Fahneneid geleistet. Wenn dieser Fahneneid gebrochen wird, ist dieser Mann ein Lump. Genauso wie ich auf dem Standpunkt stehe. Ich habe hier einen Eid geleistet, dass ich die Wahrheit sage. Und ich bin befleißigt und prüfe mich jeden Abend. Habe ich die Wahrheit gesagt oder habe ich ein einziges Mal die Unwahrheit gesagt? Genauso habe ich auf dem Standpunkt gestanden zu jener Zeit. Eid ist Eid.
Well, we were together. Well, my father was 58, my mother, she was 43, my brother, who was 22, I was 21, my sister was 19, my brother was 16, other brother was 14, sister was 8, and the little brother was 5. We're trying to keep together and go along on the road, what had been told by this brave SS.
And who of all those members of your family remained alive?
Only myself.
Rak ani.